Welcome. Good to have you here on Agile in Color. So, like CP said, we have a great panel of really great caliber people here today, and can't wait to introduce them all and get them to share quite a number of topics around some of the challenges that we experienced last year in 2020. So in the summer of 2020, the Agile Alliance, responded to the attack of George Floyd by basically convening a 4-month series with its members to grow the equity and diversity in Agile community. Okay, so that's what's kind of like got us here to this session today. And from that birthed a number of events and series under Agile in Color to support Black evangelists, Agilists, and thought leaders, basically to support with mentoring, coaching, and learning opportunities like what we have going on today. Okay, so today we will be talking about last year's events and how it will be shaping and has been shaping 2021 and beyond. So I'm going to just quickly introduce myself, and then I will share with you some great accomplishments about the people that we have on the panel today. So I'm Bimpe Odun. I'm an Agile team coach. I'm also an Agile product development trainer. Work with the 100 Black Men of London. It's a great charity to help people as well in the community, help kids around product development, teaching them the necessary skills to come up with some great, meaningful and purposeful solutions. I've been in the industry in consulting and in industry and consulting for 11 years now, with certifications in various different Agile, Scrum and Scaled Agile certifications. And we have great Nono Donsa with us. Nono, give us a wave. Your name's there already, so everyone should see you. It's an Agile coach from Momentum Metropolitan Holdings in Johannesburg, South Africa. So she's with us from South Africa today. Bachelor of Science degree in the University of Stellenbosch. Certified in Professional Scrum Master, Agile Coach, professional product owner as well, with 10 years of experience and working in the financial services space as well, digital media and advertising. And she's a lifelong learner and teaching, loving, teaching her passion, which is around Agile and product ownership. We've got Matt. Matt, give us a wave. Matt Carlson with us. He's passionate about cultivating workplaces that enable people to become the most powerful version of themselves. He's currently a Scrum Master at Harvard University and also supports with Agile transformations at New Balance and Washington University. So you can see the caliber of people we've got here, okay? I'm hoping you're excited about what we're going to be talking about. Some great accomplishments that Matt's managed to achieve is organizer of Lean Kanban, certified in Agile coach, Agile team facilitator, and agility in the enterprise with IC Agile. And he's also included in Lean Kanban North America, Agile Coach Camp. You can see the great stuff that we're doing in this Agile space, and I'm glad to bring people together. We've got you guys together on Agile in Color. And he joined the team on Agile in Color in the fall of 2020. So last year he joined. And we've got Jackie. Jackie, please give us a wave. Jackie Phrases. She's an expert in and experienced in technology. She is a technology professional with 20 years of experience. The past 12 years, she's been an Agile practitioner, helping teams and organizations implementing and improving their Agile adoption and delivery, and evangelizing the passion for Agile across multiple areas of organizations. Jackie is passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and a co-organizer of Women in Agile Atlanta. Okay, and we've got Keisha. Keisha, please give us a wave. Thank you. Keisha Wright Banks is an Agile coach and owns an Agile Bright, a transformation trainer, and she owns a consulting firm as well. Keisha's managed many different software development projects and graduate from Rutger University with a Bachelor of Arts degree. So we've got someone from arts here with us. She's a member of Agile Alliance and Scrum Alliance as well. Women in Technology, Black Women in Technology, and Alpha Kappa, Alpha Sovereignty Inc. And she's also certified in various different certification, PMP, CSM, CSP, CCPO, and CSM. So I've introduced you all. Please give everyone, just, say a quick hello, everyone. No, please unmute yourself and just say hello there.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone, welcome.
Thank you. So, taking you back to what we're here for, we said that 2020 was a challenging year. George Floyd's attack and death, spurred a lot of conversation, a lot of things got birthed out of that. And here we are with Agile in Colour. And we're looking forward, we're not going to kind of stay in the past and, keep reflecting on the past, but it's important to look back and think about how do we move forward as a people, right? So I want us to kind of start light, with how 2020 has and will be shaping 2021. So I'm going to put the question out to you, Matt, first, if that's okay. How do you feel that do you feel like there has been more empathy for people that we serve these days, whether that's through organizations or even just family, people that we serve in our lives? Do you feel like with what's happened in 2020 that things have definitely changed and people have more empathy for one another? And how has that been reflected in society?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think so. Like I see, for example, a lot of what's going on with COVID is it's a shared experience. So like it's a global thing. And so I feel a certain amount of like empathy for anyone, be it someone in my personal life or like someone on my team, if they're having a bad day, if they can't make a meeting, if they have a family situation come up. I have empathy for them, even if I personally don't have a family, but if someone on my team has, a situation with their, child come up, then like, I definitely have empathy for them, and that like, they're trying to balance the needs of, being a parent, for example, with being just showing up and doing their job. So yeah. Definitely.
Thank you, Matt. I'm gonna go to Jackie next. Jackie, please share.
Yeah, I think everything that happened in 2020 with the pandemic and, Black Lives Matter and the video that rocked the world with George Floyd has definitely shaped and changed 2021. So just starting out with the pandemic, it's the great equalizer, right? There used to be a lot of debate in our workplaces of being remote versus being co-located. That kind of nixed that argument. And it kind of put everybody in the same place, right? We all, regardless of whether we're Agilists or not, we're all experiencing the same thing, especially if we work in tech, right? Having to work remotely, having to juggle our lives, trying to separate our lives working remotely. So I think the pandemic has been a great equalizer. We're all experiencing the same thing. And it's also shown our companies that people can do really great things working remotely, but there's also a burden that comes with that mentally. And then when I think about Black Lives Matter and all the events that happened last year, I, especially as a Black woman, I have that intersect. It's definitely changed me in the way I show up in my spaces every day, both at work and with my friends and family. And dealing and talking to other people of color, I'm getting a similar theme. So yes, the person and the workplace and the relationships I had pre-2020 definitely changed now that I'm in 2021.
Yeah, Yes, thank you, Jackie. Keisha, do you want to share with us, how you
So I think being agilists, we all adapt to change, right? And so I think this gave us a lot of people, whether you're agilists or not our chops. Can you adapt to change? We weren't really given a choice, right? And that changed the pandemic, obviously. I didn't think I would be in my house with two little kids for a year. I had to adapt quickly with that, right? And then just the state of where we are in race relations in this country. And you know what I mean? And how you've heard that globally, right? And just the way these companies have alleged, because this is their mission to step up to hire, to put more people of color in senior positions. We have to see. Most of them have mandates by 2025. I think one of the things we should do in this organization is hold people to the fire. If you said you're going to do this, then we need to hold them to the fire that this is going to happen. So, a lot of CEOs have came out and spoke and how they have this initiatives. And I've even heard in my inner circle how people didn't realize how racist they were, right? And they didn't know. And so I think that it's going to shape not only this country globally, it's going to hopefully shape people's thought process. And people will interact with people differently. I hope we will be kinder, right? I hope not just to brown and black people, but to each other, because we all went through something in this last year that it was like a horror film, seriously. So yes, I think going forward, we're going to see a lot of different things. And I pray for that too. So
Thank you, Keisha. No, please do
Thanks,
share.
Samir. I think I think the George Floyd thing, even though it didn't happen in our country, was very relevant because it is what happens. I almost want to say globally from a race perspective. But the reason it hit home for me in South Africa is because every time a person of color brought or highlighted bias, be it specifically from a race perspective, it was getting to a point where it was eye rolling, and here comes the race card again. And the racial divide was almost made to seem insignificant because we've been talking about it for so long. So when we saw the George Floyd incident, it really highlighted that for 150 years of colonization in a country, you can't just expect, if there's broad-based Black economic empowerment or affirmative action, that everybody should now say, okay, so we've got that, and therefore can we close the race discussion? It really just showed us that we've really got a long way to go, and we actually need to uncover and have a look deeply in terms of what is happening in our organizations. I've seen a lot of posts on LinkedIn, people talking about systemic racism. So it's almost subliminal, and it's enabled Black people, people of color, even non-Black people, to actually talk about race again without having people roll their eyes because we're playing the race card again. So it really made that conversation relevant because it's still something that happens today, and we should not be made to feel as if the conversation has been going on for years. We need to get over it. Something that was interesting that happened in our country two or 3 days ago was there was a man in a store, and he was wearing traditional African attire. The store manager came and he said so it was two Black men. One was wearing traditional African attire and the other man was wearing a suit, if I can call it that. The guy who was wearing African clothes was asked to leave the store because his dress was inappropriate for the store that he was in. So the reason that was interesting is because it raised the question, if we look at systemic racism, as people of color, have we been liberated psychologically? Why would a Black man tell another Black man that traditional clothes are unacceptable at a mall? Which opened a deeper conversation, not just between Black and white or Black and other, but also between Black and Black. What has been the impact of systemic racism towards Black people, towards one another? So going back to the topic on empathy, I think the reality is you're not working from home. You're at home trying to work. And the reality is if during an important board meeting, my kids have appeared on camera, my daughters too, and she was wearing shoes, a mask, and no clothes. So the reality is you're in my home. So people need to find a way to get by. And it was good to see that, as inappropriate as that was my reality at the time. So I've seen people be human towards things like that. I've seen people deliver important presentations, and in the background, someone screams, "Mom, the toast's burning." So I think we've got the empathy part has definitely been awakened. I hope that it's something that we will be able to carry forward even post-COVID, where we see each other as whole human beings, where you are not expected to leave your personal life at the door when you arrive at the office, but you come in as you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it's interesting to see how, various different things are taking place in people's households, but in people's lives, and how we just have to come together because we're all in the same boat, right? Or at least, like Jackie's point, we've all acknowledged that we are all in the same position right now. The pandemic has hit everyone, and we just have to kind of like show that compassion to one another and just let certain things slip by without necessarily commenting on it. But other times, you do have to have that open, honest conversation. So yeah, I actually want to kind of explore how, we're talking about Agile, and we're talking about, one of the things we want to talk about is real value. So whether that be real value to your family, once again, the people that you serve, or your customers, how can we show, an appreciation, empathy for the people we're trying to serve? How can we do more of that and target our customers better as well? They're not trying to name drop at all, but there are companies out there that, particularly in London, I saw a lot of posts around a supermarket that chose not to include a Black family, as part of their advert, for example. And ultimately, you're going to have a mix, whether it's age groups, whether it's sexuality, whether it's color, whatever it may be, you're going to have different people coming into, for example, your supermarket. Those are people that are your, people you're serving. How can companies show more empathy and appreciation for their customers and have more of showing more of the different types of customers that they serve, and really targeting them and intending to actually serve and provide better service to them, So I'm gonna throw the question to you, Jackie. How do you think we can serve our customers better and target them better?
Yeah, we're Agilists, and Agile is most predominant in tech companies, right? I've used Agile in lots of other places, schools, charity groups, but primarily in tech organizations. And there's no secret that tech has a DEI problem, right? And that is the root cause of larger issues that lead to those flaws in their products, right? You will see discrimination of people of color in, facial recognition software because it was developed by all white males, and, AI headsets, designed by men making women nauseous, right? It's this thing where we're delivering these products to a customer base that's extremely diverse, but our companies don't employ diversity. There's no representation. And we all know the huge McKinsey study, I guess it was back in 2015, that those companies that had people of color and in their management tended to perform 35% higher from a financial reward per average than those companies that don't. So I think companies need to start understanding, if your workforce does not represent the diversity of the customers who buy your products aren't going to have value. You are not going to make money. It's simple as that. Capitalism is what runs the world, and they can keep, having this unconscious bias, and they can keep not acknowledging privilege, but bottom line, having a diverse workforce, reaps bigger rewards. And so that's kind of, my passion from a DEI perspective, is that, you hear all these studies, the big companies, the Googles and the Amazons, and think about it, Google's been through 3 different chief diversity officers in the past since 2016, right? And the numbers really haven't moved. And so I think companies need to get rid of their biases. They need to understand that there isn't a pipeline problem. You have to meet these diverse candidates where they are. The pandemic has shown us you cannot just start, people can work from anywhere, right? And you cannot just put all of your VC money in Boston, New York, and, California, right? I live in Atlanta, Georgia. We're one of the largest, I think we're the 10th tech hiring, mecca in the country. Here in Atlanta, we have an exorbitant number of, just Black technologists. It's a hub of, Black tech entrepreneurship. Historically, Black colleges graduate, 50% of the Black women who own STEM degrees. Companies need to understand. I'm going to be honest, I'm not moving to California. My support system, everything I need and have is here. Companies need to get more creative in allowing people to be distributed and supporting those diverse, faces, those diverse thoughts, those diverse ethnic minorities, in order to provide value to their clients and customers for the products that they want to purchase. I'm going to stop there because I could go on about that.
I just want to piggyback off that. Bempe, may I? Just quickly, I'm reading a book, and it's one of the executives here in South Africa. He worked overseas for a couple of years. He says that when he got into the job, he was recruited specifically, well, yes, because he was Black, but also because he was excellent at what he does. And he says that there is a difference between being tolerated and being embraced. So when he started and he was a junior at his job, he was being tolerated. So if you can see that you're being tolerated, it's a bigger energy hurdle to get over to get to high performance. Because as human beings of all races, one of our primary needs is acceptance, right? So whether it be in the workforce, it be in your tribe, before we're still back in the caveman ages. So if you're in a workforce or in a work environment where you actually do get the role, let's say that companies actually do take Jackie's advice and they do decide then to promote Black people into the various ranks. If you promote them and you tolerate them, not embrace them, then they will probably reach high performance, but you make it so much harder for them to do so, because they need to do so in an environment where they know they do not fit. Right. So it's interesting as well, because I think globally, when you talk to hiring managers and they say they're looking for Black talent, they usually say there's just so few of it. We can't find them. They've been scooped up by all these banks. The reality is, I was reading a book again, speaking about negative bias, where you are more impacted by negative feedback than positive feedback, right? And then eventually, if you hear something often enough, you start believing in it, right? And if you start believing it, it starts becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. These Black people are not smart. They don't know what they're doing. Every company, this black CEO messed up, and therefore we silently let him go. If we start hearing those messages and we internalize them, they eventually become self-fulfilling prophecies, because now you're a Black CEO and you feel like the whole Black nation is on your shoulders and you need to represent the Black people. But you've also heard about the other 8 CEOs that were let go before you because these Black people or these Indian people don't know what they're doing. The reason for my rant then is, as Agile coaches, we can respond to that. We need to create environments where we start the conversations. We make it safe and comfortable for people who feel oppressed, people who feel tolerated, to have the conversations. We make it safe for the oppressor to have the conversations, where we make people just simply suspend your judgment and just be curious. What was that? Why did that happen? This is how I felt. What do you think of that? once we start having those conversations, we can at least then start to uncover. And then once we've uncovered, we could come up with a series of experiments. So how do we fix this? Let's try that. Would it work?
Yeah, thank you, Nono. I actually want to kind of throw the question to you, Matt and Keisha. Do you feel, because I know you gave a number of options there, Nono, around who kind of starts the conversation, but you said we, those that are experiencing the challenges, we need to come up with sharing and keep putting it out there so that people are aware of our struggles and our problems. However, I've spoken with friends, they're professionals on like LinkedIn, who will say that it's exhausting to start the conversation. They say that why do people want to like put me in a room with maybe loads of white people, for example, and start just pounding me with questions, just asking me, okay, how does this feel? What should we do? And it's like, okay, I'm employed to maybe be a developer, for example, but now I'm spending a half-day workshop being prodded, you know. And so I just want to put it out there. And I feel like there are so many ways it can be tackled, and it depends on the individual, like whether you're the one that wants to kind of like fight the good fight, or whether you're the one that, you want to kind of just get on with life. There are different ways people can get on with it. So I want to just put the question to either you Keisha or Matt, please.
Okay, I can do it. So I think it's a couple of things here, right? I think you're right. You don't want to go to work and have to fight, right? You don't want to be, everybody does not want to be this, this hero, right? People just want to work and be accepted. But I think that the same reason why Agile sometimes don't work at organizations, they can't transform, is the same problem with diversity, culture. You have to change your culture, whether you want to become an agile centric organization or you want to embrace diversity. You can hire people and people are hired. How many of your Black and brown people are staying? You have to change. And I think, no, it's embracing. I have to feel comfortable in your culture to want to stay. So if you're not ready, and when I go to clients, the first thing I ask them, well, why do you want to do Agile? And everybody look, because if it's because it's hot, like some people want to do diversity, then we need to have a different conversation, right? Because I need to hear something really real about why you want to do this. And the same reason, why do you want to have these diversity hires? If you're going to say because what happened in summer 2020, we need to still have a different conversation. And I guarantee you, that's the reason a lot of them want to do this. And that's the problem. So I think, no, you hit on something. I think we are agilists. We do adapt to change. We are change agents. And I think that it's something to be said. And I don't know what that is. And maybe we develop an Agile in color. Maybe all the people on this call we talk about. But what do we develop to become those change agents with diversity? To not just have a CEO come and say, I'm going to have 20% senior leaders by 2025. Guess what? If you don't change your culture, most of them are going to be going by 2030. So that's not the problem. It's they have to feel comfortable, right? And so I don't know if these CEOs and these seniors need to go to cool school. I don't know what needs to happen, but I think we need to have that discussion, right? So they can actually not just hire, but as no say, embrace, change the culture. So we don't want to leave, and we don't, because I have so many friends, and that's why I love Agile Color, and that's why I joined this organization, because I've seen this in tech in different ways, right? But in Agile, I haven't seen this where people of color are getting together and talking, having these discussions, because I think innately we are change agents, and we can be the change we talk about.
Yeah, thank you. Matt, do you want to kind of share your thoughts around that as well? You're on mute, Matt. Not sure what happened there. So I'll just kind of kind of share something that you hit the nail on the head there, Keisha, with employ. I'll just finish off here, Matt. So employ people who are specialists in this area. I have people who are speakers, who actually are consulting around inclusion and diversity, and also integrating agile approaches into that as well. Okay, you have people who are speakers on the topic, and I had someone share on, well-known speaker, talking about his experience that he was contacted about a job to come and speak, and he was going to be the only Black person on the panel, and he was just asked, they offered him a pay for the day, and he was like, this is ridiculous, like, can you just disclose what you're going to be paying everyone else on the panel? And they couldn't. And he was like, like, he'd happily do it if it was a small company, but it is a global billion-dollar company. So he knew that they could afford it. But if it was a small to medium size or micro business, he would have maybe, gone on maybe for free even, to speak on the topic. But it's just interesting how, like I said, some people being prodded and being uncomfortable and they're not employed to do these things, and it's that's not showing empathy is what I'm trying to drive there. That person is not the right person to kind of drive what you're trying to do. And the right people that are there, some people are not employing them. They're not getting paid and recognized for what they're bringing to the company because they don't really value it. It's just to kind of like tick that box. And so you need to look out. So one thing that I'm just trying to emphasize here, you need to look out for those signals, like you need to see like what companies are really about, and whether if you want to move on to another company, for example, are they talking about inclusion and diversity, but are they really, someone said talking the talk, you should talk the talk, sorry, walk the walk, rather just talking about it. I think it was Anna. So we'll start probably including some people's questions into the conversation as well. CP, like, let me know when, or if you've got some questions. Matt, I don't want to cut you off there. Did you want to add anything to what we were just talking about there?
Yeah, just real quick. I think there's also an element where, white people and especially like white men can do better, because we need to be a part of the solution in terms of like creating like more inviting, more inclusive cultures in workplaces. And at least I'm, mainly thinking of the US here because that's where I live, but I'm sure it's similar in other countries around the world. Yesterday, a coworker and I actually like started a small conversation group with like other white men, just sort of like starting to talk through some of these things. And it was awkward. It wasn't like planned. There was not much of an agenda. And it's kind of an experiment, and we're just trying it out to see how it goes. And yeah, hopefully it will, improve things.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Matt, for sharing what you're doing there, because we spoke about that a couple of days ago. And like, we don't have the solution. That's what innovative, in the space of agility and innovation, you don't know what the solution is going to be. But when you really have compassion and empathy, and you're really striving, you have a vision in place of what you're trying to achieve, you will get there. When you keep trying and iterating over what you're trying to achieve, you will get there. When you include the people you're trying to serve and the customers, ultimately, when I say customers and people you're serving, whether it's Black people that you want to embrace and bring a part of your company, if you include them in that conversations and include the right people in those conversations, you will get to what you're trying to achieve. So I applaud you, Matt, because you don't necessarily have the answer, but you've started a journey of having conversations, putting some actions in place of saying, how can we tackle this? And so I actually want to talk about some maybe frameworks or approaches. Design thinking is a discipline, actually, which I think would be great for this conversation we're talking about, talking about maybe how might we, if you have a vision of doing something, how might we do certain things, and just brainstorming those ideas. People can actually just come in a room. You don't have to be a specialist in the area. You can come in the room and say, okay, how could we do this better? And just brainstorm with so many different ideas and things to try and achieve what you're trying to do. So I want to pose the question to you, because I feel I always try and look for solutions. I try not, like Nono mentioned, if you keep hearing negative things, you will start to believe it. And for me, I'm like a sponge. I absorb everything around me and everything I hear, everything I feel, and I really try and protect my space. So I think what are the things that we can do? And it's not necessarily step 1 to 10,
Right.
you know, and then you'll get it. That's not what's going to happen. We don't know the answer, but some frameworks, some maybe conversations or places to look, just some nuggets that you can throw out there for people that just don't know how to start.
I want
You
to
know?
take this one.
So
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I'd like to speak to that because when we think in terms of agile and agility, I'm going to pull a couple of things from, the Scrum Framework, and, they have those pillars of transparency, inspection, and adaptation. And it really does start with being transparent, right? We've got to come to the table, and it's hard, right? And I think people need to kind of educate themselves a little bit when they come to the table. To your point, Bempe, we can't just rely on the one Black person in your office, or the one woman, or the one Asian, insert ethnic minority there. That is putting too much burden on a person, to your point, who's here to do your UI design, right? That's not what they came to work to do. So I think those who are in the place of power and privilege need to educate themselves, right? And kind of own your privilege. Everyone on this call has privilege, but we're talking about a situation that is predominantly white and male. Matt talked about it. You've got to kind of own that, right? And when we talk about transparency, inspection, and adaptation, it's really about learning and changing, right? So you've got to learn. You've got to take that feedback and not get into a place of defensiveness, or get into, gaslighting people. Well, I hear you, but I grew up poor and Irish, and my parents never gave me anything either, right? Your colleague doesn't necessarily want to hear that, right? You're gaslighting them a little bit there. So I think just the values of Agile have a lot of nuggets in there that, if we really truly apply to the things that we're doing, we can really, create, it doesn't have to be a specific framework, but if we stick to those values, there's a lot of things that we can do in order to improve in an iterative and agile way. And Matt even talked about it. Matt is having other conversations with white males, right? Matt is not coming, or his colleagues understanding that I'm not just going to go to that one ethnic person in my group and expect them to educate me and give me all the answers. And I'll even say to me as a Black woman, what I've started to do is I've gotten out of I had a little bit of this mindset for a long time, working in specifically corporate America, tech, predominantly white and male. I often was looking for my white male counterparts to make the change for me. I no longer do that. I cannot expect people who don't look like me to make change for people who who look like me. So I'm very deliberate in. Don't get me wrong. I love allies. Of course, Matt is one of our allies. However, I'm really invested in doing the work with people who look like me to make change for us. So.
Thank you. Keisha.
I have a really thought on this, and Matt, you're doing it. So one thing they do in SAFE is, like, you start out a SAFE transformation with training the leaders of an organization, right? You do leading SAFE training, and I think we need change agents. And it's not that diversity officer. It's not that one person. That one person can change. Matt, you're doing it. You guys talking are the change agents. And then you start to become infectious, right? And you start talking to other people. You need a bunch of change agents within the organization. That one diversity officer cannot be just like I can't come in as this one person and make everybody do Agile. Same thing, same exact thing. I can't come in and make everybody really think about diversity. So I think it starts with some sort of, hey, leaders, not let's train you on what diversity means and what we need. Let's show you. You become these change agents to change the culture, to break up that negative, disgusting culture that's been present for years and years and years, and to kind of put something beautiful to overlay these organizations, right? But I think we have to have change agents throughout the organization, and they can't all look like us, right? They need to look like Matt. And Matt, I applaud you for having that conversation, for becoming that change agent that will help that company grow.
Yeah,
I
I'm
want to
a
take it
big
a step.
believer in. Oh, go ahead. No, please.
I want to take it outside of the boardroom. George Floyd didn't die in a boardroom, right? He died on the streets. So I want us to take diversity. Absolutely, it should happen in the corporate environment. And when we talk about transformation, people talk about top down versus bottom up, right? But let's take it outside of work. So if we think about from an agile perspective and look at the values and principles, what I'm doing outside of work is to teach my children. I do not want my children sitting on a Zoom call or in person having this conversation at all. It ends with me. So from a values and principles perspective, those are the values I teach my kids. I teach them to ask questions. If they experience racism, I've had to choose, do I arm them so that they know what to do so they don't take that nonsense? Or do I teach them to negotiate around that, right? So, because what happens when we transform the boardrooms, what's going to happen on the streets? We need to talk about it everywhere. So it starts with values and principles with the kids, teaching the kids to be curious so that if we happen to have allies in our boardrooms and they do come on board, the next generation of leaders that come, it's a non-issue. If they experience racism, they question immediately, what is this? Why is it happening? How do we change it? So that the transformation is absolutely in the boardrooms, but it's also in the streets, so that the CEOs of tomorrow, the white friend at your child's school has had robust conversations at 5. This is how, because remember, the kids see things at home as well. So if there's no transformation in the home, if a child gets to the school playground and there's some form of bias that happens, kids need to be able to ask, what is this? Why did you say this to such and such a person? Why do you think that's right? In my home, in my house, our values are respect and kindness. So then the kids need to say, what are the values in your home? So if the values in your home are not that, so that it really just becomes a thing. George Floyd didn't die in a boardroom, so we need transformation everywhere. Police brutality doesn't happen in a boardroom, does it? So the safe transformation needs to happen in the boardroom. It needs to happen in the streets. It needs to happen in the homes. So that I don't. When people say, why are we still having this conversation? It's going to happen up until we take the transformation everywhere.
Thank you, No. Yeah, I think ultimately wherever leaders are, yeah, they need to really embrace what we're talking about here.
And Dimpy, I'm gonna go off track, and I know because I'm just a rebel, and I'm just
Over the floor. What are you
this is
going to
what I
say?
do. But I want us to keep this, and we don't have to do it now because I know you have a program, and I don't want us to. But I want us to ask our audience. I want people to have this discussion because this is deep and this is important, and what they think should be done. But go ahead.
So I will start tracking the chat.
Yes.
I was hoping we'll get a bit of a nudge from there. But Matt, did you want to also add? Because I know you're doing some great stuff, and I think obviously you're doing what you know how to do and what works in your environment. But is there anything that you can put out there for others that you feel like is maybe something quick or something that's simple that others can just pick up quite quickly and start introducing, aside from what you're already doing, Matt?
Yeah, one quick thing that I think anyone could do, regardless of like whether it's in your personal life or professional, is like it's really just like checking, like if you notice that someone who's maybe like not a member of, but like a person of color, or just someone who's not talking, just asking the question like, is there anybody else who has any thoughts about this? Or, may perhaps like asking that person specifically, like, do you have any thoughts on this? And really just try to like invite them into the conversation that's going on as a means of trying to like cultivate a more inclusive environment.
I like that because it's more inviting. It's like, if you're interested, come and join the conversation,
Yes.
rather than prodding people and saying, right, you're Black, tell me all about your life.
Solve this problem because you know everything.
So no, I like that. It's more inviting, and it's more, okay, if you're passionate about this and interested, and if you feel like you can make a contribution, jump in and be a part of this. So yeah, thank you. So we'll open it up for people to either ask questions, and please just, if you can raise your hand. I'm not sure how. Yeah,
at the
I'm
chat.
going to read some of the comments, because, you know, people are kind of just echoing some of the stuff we're saying and also sharing some great stuff. So we have Anne-Marie, who mentioned we have to walk the walk and not talk the talk. Exactly, thank you. And then Nicole, you've got belonging is not the responsibility of the person seeking to belong. Yeah, totally agree there. Performative allyship is real. Do you want to maybe just speak there, Nicole? If you want to unmute yourself, please, we're inviting you to just join the conversation.
I was just supporting from behind.
Nicole's like, you put me on the spot. You said not to do that to people, but you did it to me.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I was just supporting you silently. It's all good. But Jackie knows this very well about me, but all of last year, I was sort of on a rant about performative allyship, because there was so much of it and it made me so angry. When people are talking about black squares on Instagram and black pages on websites, and I'm like, that doesn't really do anything for anybody. That's equivalent to the thoughts and prayers that people say after gun violence happens, right? It's like, okay, but what action are you going to actually take? A black square does not change anything for anybody. So I would prefer, companies and organizations to say nothing than to be a performative ally, because it's like, don't don't indicate that you support support the people having the problem if you're not going to contribute to the solution. And so that's kind of what my whole performative allyship is real thing is about. And so I feel it, especially, I can only speak for myself, that I take my own company to task to make sure that they're not doing that. And I think that once your company opens the door, like for example, if your company makes a statement or posts a statement on their website or of support or whatever, I feel they have opened a door to say, okay, you're supporting me, so now I can challenge you to say, okay, what are we going to do about this, right?
Yeah,
It's a collaborative effort. As long as I know that you have opened the door, then we can walk through it together. But I need to see you open the door first. And so I think that's how, we as individuals, if we have our own companies that we work for, or whatever companies we're dealing with that have made some indication of support, then I feel that's okay. It's like, this is a great starting point for a conversation. I've, throw some ideas out at them or whatever, just to get the wheels churning, because it can disappear as quick as yesterday's news, which happens a lot. So that's kind of where my whole issue about performative allyship comes from.
thank you. No, it's so important, right? You just shared some great stuff there, and I'm gonna just kind of get through some of the comments in the chat, and hopefully we can continue again. We've got Anne-Marie, who's also said change starts with me. Change starts with each person. Each person is having to evolve. A resource that Anne-Marie shared is aid to having and facilitating continuous, hard and uncomfortable conversations. Yeah, as a facilitator myself, I know how difficult it is to facilitate a meeting anyway, but when you're having difficult conversations like this, and contentious, hard, uncomfortable conversation, compassionate conversations, how to speak and listen from the heart. by Diane Musho. So yeah, thank you for that. I think, yeah, talking about framework approaches and things we can do, yes, it's important that how do you involve every voice? So if you're facilitating a session to, whether it's how might we exercise, of how can we come up with some solutions against the problem that we're experiencing, you know, you want to make sure that every voice is being heard. You want to make sure that even when it's uncomfortable, how are you going to like address an uncomfortable conversation, you know, and conflicting views? Because one person might say, oh, every Black person should like stand up and talk about this all day long, while someone else in the room has a different way of talking about addressing it. You want to like make sure that you're facilitating a session like that so that everyone's voice is being heard. But then also, how do you even prioritize all of that? You know, you might have a backlog of things to do. How do you then start prioritizing that? It's really tricky conversation. And I think in everything, like, you know, when you don't know exactly what the solution is, you really just have to kind of go with what you feel from the heart, what you think is the right thing. As a product owner, you think about, okay, what do I feel like is the right thing to do first, and try and see how that can make an impact. Appreciate our diversity and difference is something else Anne-Marie mentioned. And then take the transformation everywhere, in our families, in our communities, on a playground, and not just the boardroom, is also, yeah, what Nono had said, and Marie's just echoing that. So a question we have is, what do you think are the steps we as a community should do to drive the transformational change? Okay, what are the things we can do as a community to drive the transformational change? So this transformation, okay, yeah, Jackie, please go ahead. I guess it applies anywhere, right?
Right. And so I can, you know, last year with a lot of things happened that made me kind of self-reflect and, you know, think about this particular thing, like what can I do and be part of the community to make this change? And, you know, as Anne-Marie said, the change starts with me. And so I kind of came up with these 4 mantras that I've had for a while, but I had to like revisit. And it's, I've got them here. I have them on flashcards. I always use them when I do presentations and talks. You might not be able to see it because of my background, but number 1 for me is make it uncomfortable with accountability, right? There are ways, like Nicole said, if your company or a product you use or a store that you love to shop at has put out, or a restaurant has put out one of these disclaimers, I support, you know, the Black community in light of George Floyd, yada, yada, yada. But then you're seeing post that announcement that they're not maybe upholding the Black square or the statement. You know, it might not be easy, but ask them about it if you see something that's not representing you, and hold them accountable. We recently had a situation, I'll share, Nicole, if you don't mind. We're both members of Women in Agile, and they had, you know, they had the Women's Day, you know, little videos that they put out with everybody, you know, giving their solidarity for Women's Day, and there were no Black women represented. And another one of our colleagues pointed it out. And so we're members of this group. These are women we like and work with, but we, you know, we held them to task, and we held them accountable, and we pointed it out, and they came back and said, hey, we're willing to learn, and, you know, showed a sign of support and want to continue the conversation. So that's when I say, make it uncomfortable with accountability. And so number 2 for me is be honest, right? I can say early on in my career, I would show up in places, in work and outside of work, where oftentimes I was the only person of color, the only woman, and I wasn't always honest. You know, I'd wear a mask because it was easier, right? And I understand it's different for different people in places of their career, but where I am right now in a place of privilege, in a different part of my career, I commit to show up in honesty in all ways and at all times. And so number 3 for me is build awareness. If I don't have the conversations with those people who don't look like me, who I have built trust with, right? Or who are allies, if I'm not willing to have those conversations, then it's going to be tough. I have to build awareness. And when I have a platform, I want to build awareness, right? And then number 4 is be fearlessly authentic. I would often, accommodate or show up in a space where I was the minority, trying to fit in. Now I lead with authenticity. And authenticity means different things to different people depending on your situation, but I always try to lead with that first. I spent a lot of years not being authentic in situations because I was always the only one. But now I've really kind of changed the way I think about, especially what has happened since last year. So I always show up in authenticity. So those are kind of the four things. I think they can apply to other people, but those are the ones I kind of carry with me and keep close to my heart. So
Thank you. I love those 4 tips there. Thank you so much. um, no, do you have anything that you want to share with regards to the question? Do you want me to play it back to you or you good?
Please play it back. Thank you, Ben.
Sorry?
Please play it back.
Okay, so the question was,
What do you think are the steps?
the question was, what do you think are the steps we can, as a community, or should do to drive the transformational change? And that, I assume, is like in any environment, not just in the employment space.
So there've been a lot of webinars and meetups with regards to bias. And what I've noticed is every time a speaker starts on the topic, in order to not isolate some members of the audience, they first discuss the physiology, why it happens, in the sense that the brain processes, for example, 11 million pieces of information per second. And therefore now it's important to compartmentalize. And therefore we have bias, right? So the intention there is really to show everybody that it happens to everybody so that nobody in the audience feels isolated. And then they usually go into how bias represents itself or how it presents itself and the impact and then what to do. Something that I've found has been missing is, I think it's good that we cement that the physiology so that we all understand what it is. I think what's missing in all the presentations that I've attended is then, as a person who now acknowledges that black, white, pink, green, the fact that we all have biases, what is important after that is understand who you are as a person so that you can understand those biases. And here's what I mean. One of the stereotypes that Black women get given is that they're angry, right? So I interrogated that because I'd watch my body language and I do come across, I'm quite specific. So to give an example, if I want something done at work, someone else who's not me might say, hello, dear, at your earliest convenience, would you please give me an Excel spreadsheet with this information? I will say, hello, Keisha. Can I please have an Excel spreadsheet with 3 rows and 9 columns by 3 o'clock this afternoon?
And I would say yes.
What I expect is yes, or actually my capacity does not. I'd expect a negotiation, right?
Right, maybe, right.
But what I get sometimes is yes, and then my, she's feisty, right? So then I had to understand why do I do that, and is it wrong to do that? And I really looked into the psychology and I've come up with one that I want to teach my daughter as well. People have different communication styles. And the label that I have become comfortable with in terms of my demeanor and my communication style is, I'm not an angry Black woman. I speak in power. I'm specific about what I want, and I say what it is that I need. The downside might be is that I anticipate and I expect that the person listening also understands my communication style, but that person is not necessarily listening from a position of power. They're just listening from a position of what just happened. Right? So the reason I'm bringing this up is, what can we do as a community to start making changes and to start making inroads? So I accept the perception that Black women could be angry. But then what I expect from Black women, and this is, I'm just speaking about one of many minority groups, is to get to know who you are so that when we get given that label, I accept it, but I understand I'm not angry. My communication style is from a power perspective.
With
So
passion.
when I hear that comment, it's not offensive. I just align with the person who says that. This is what I expect. This is when I expect it by. I am not angry. I'm coming from a position of I speak in power. When I say position, I don't mean I'm the CEO and you're the cleaner. I mean as a person. I come from a communication style of power. And therefore that then at least informs the other person and myself as well. The listener is not necessarily from a position of power. So to wrap up my rant, what can we do to make inroads? Get to know yourself. Black woman, white woman, black man, white man, Asian woman. So that when we start encountering these things that have put us in this position, we know where we are coming from, and we can start if we can start conversations from a position of knowledge of who we are as well. I said that when you hear negative things, eventually you start internalizing them. When you internalize them, they eventually become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you know who you are, you will then take those negative messages, you will reframe them to positive messages. The person who is articulating that negativity will get a different perspective. But also subconsciously, you are not internalizing the negative messaging, and therefore you will not fall into the vicious cycle of then eventually starting to believe it and then not performing. And then hopefully, I'm a mom, so I'm very passionate about kids. Hopefully the language you use at home as well. If your child says this, child at school says this, you reframe it so that what is embedded in your child's memory is a reframed version of what the world keeps throwing at them. So that one of the biases that we definitely can break is that negative messaging. Don't think it positively, speak it positively. So that what gets embedded in you psychologically is not the negative messaging, but a reframed message. So that's one of many things that can be done, but something that I've found quite powerful. And again, I want, if you forget everything I've said and you remember one thing about me this evening, it's with kids, you need to lay the right foundations, because my children are not going to be having this conversation when they are my age. My children are going to be in a society that has been transformed. My daughter is going to speak in power, and when someone says she's an angry black woman, she will know exactly who she is, and she will reframe that. And the messaging that is going to be embedded in her subconscious is the one from a position of power, not one from a position of colonization or minority.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. I think two things there Jackie had mentioned earlier is unlearning, but then also reframing what they've experienced. You know, like most of the time we don't remember stuff the way it really happened. If someone was attacked on the street, for example, we don't remember exactly how it happened. And our mind plays certain things to us, and then we remember it a little bit different from the way it actually happened. And you just sharing with the younger ones, you know, how they can look at that experience a little bit different really creates a lot of power for them, right? So thank you. It's like almost unlearning, but also rephrasing or reforming what they actually experienced and learning. And I think that's a great way to help people grow and move forward. We do have another question here. So question is, how do we navigate, or how do you navigate your enterprise subtle discrimination that exists today? And what's scary and ineffective is trying to reach out to HR and feeling that even they too are against you. The same dismissive attitude towards acknowledging discrimination exists there as well. So this is where, you know, people you're working with are demonstrating discrimination, going to HR, they're saying, you know, they're kind of letting it fall by the wayside, not really prioritizing it as something to address. How do you tackle this? I'm not in a position of HR myself, but, you know, if I were to see something like this, I think I would just tackle it head on and address it with the individual. But that's the way I approach things. you know, with the individual, speak to them about the problem. I feel like it's good to challenge people and have healthy challenge. I always say, challenge me and I will challenge you. I always say this to, you know, people I work with. I want people to give me feedback. I want people to tell me, you know, if they think I'm an angry black woman, tell me today rather than in 5 years' time, or let me I don't want to find out from someone in the office that that's what you've been saying about me for 5 years. So I think if I experience something that doesn't sit quite right, I generally would just speak to the person and say, I've noticed, I'm the type that don't bring emotions into conversations. I state facts. It's like empirical evidence. I state facts, okay? So I use, okay, on this day, this happened. On this day, this happened. On this day, that happened. I'm seeing a pattern here. Something is you know, is there a problem? And that's how I would personally address it. Stating the fact, stating that I don't think it's right, and discussing it with that individual. And you might find that they say, oh, I didn't know. But then you see, is there a change now? Have they, you know, they've got that feedback. Are they now doing something about that information you shared with them? If you see no change, then I think from there, I'd escalate it. So that's something I would do. And I think using agile approach in it is stating the facts and saying this is what's been happening, and it's been a pattern, and addressing it with the individual, because I feel like, you know, I personally feel we have a responsibility to share with that person that we're experiencing that issue with. So that's my way of addressing it. So I hand it over to you, Jackie. I'd love to hear from you around that.
Yeah, and you know, this I've experienced this before. Early in my career, I'm the only Black person, I'm the only woman, and had to deal with a lot of misogyny, a lot of broiness as a woman. And my boss, and I think Malika put it in there, it was my boss who was doing it. And I just wasn't in a position to get a new job. My husband and I just bought a house. We were a young married couple. You know, I wanted my resume to look good. And it was a tough situation, but I bring to mind the things that Nono was talking about. And I think if in that moment, as a young Black woman in this very white male dominated world, I had more power. I thought from a place of power, and I thought from a place of being able to challenge without being confrontational. Now, a lot like Nono, if I'm in a meeting and someone's saying, Jackie, you're getting very agitated, or are you upset? I now can calmly say, oh no, that's just my style. I'm very direct. Is that okay? If it's not okay to be direct, then I will be more than glad to change my communication style. And usually people don't, you know, we're in a meeting, they want you to be direct, right? But I know what it feels like, Malika. I hope I'm not pronouncing your name incorrectly, to be in a place where your boss is the person who's giving you this, and you have a mortgage to pay, and you're trying to build your career. I would go to what Nono said, and how I got through that was finding other allies, finding an outlet, finding groups like this, Agile in Color, where I am outside of my environment, I am getting support, I am getting that power of positivity so that I can go into work every day. But then I also had a plan, right? That's not something you can sustain for a long time. It wears on you, it wears on your health, it wears on your psyche. So start putting your plan together. You know, start networking, start giving yourself an end date, because if you've encountered an HR like that, most of those kinds of HR serve the company and not you. So it's really about being strategic. No one should be in a situation that's not psychologically safe. We talk about that in Agile, and it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to leave that organization. But I also understand people have life things that go on. Find support. Make sure you have a good support system. Make sure mentally you're prepared for, because it does feel like battle every day, and have a plan to get out of that situation.
And then, Malika, when you do have the plan and one day you're sitting at the table, then you be the ally for the young girl who might have joined your new company and is experiencing one of the C-suite guys who's doing that to her, so that you can be her voice, because she might not be able to say, hey, David, this is what I'm picking up. You can say it on her behalf. so that again, with this transformation, we go top down and bottom up.
Right. And I would say something on that because this happened to me too. Document. I got really good as I wouldn't talk to people. I did everything in emails to the point when I did go back to HR, it was so valid that they were scared that they were going to get sued. So document, document, document. Don't have these conversations on the phone. Make sure you say, okay, so what you're saying is make sure you have an email trail and when you go to HR, it has to be so just in their face that they can't do anything because they have to, even though they probably are protecting the company, they have to protect the company. And that might mean addressing it.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see, hey, what if it's your boss? I think Jackie's addressed that anyway, and likewise Keisha. No. Did you have anything you wanted to share there, Matt, as well?
The only thing I could think of would be like maybe if there's someone either in like HR or a similar organization of like the diversity of office of like diversity and inclusion, something to that effect, that if there's someone there who might be able to come into the organization and give a presentation to like either the leadership team and the entire organization about the issue, that might be another way to just sort of like promote like this is the expected behavior. And so like those who aren't falling in line with that, like you're at least bringing awareness to the problem. So if the problem continues, then you have something to go to HR with, perhaps.
Yes.
And hopefully it doesn't come to that.
Thank you. So yeah, opening up the chat to ask any further questions. We do have just 6 minutes left, and then CP is going to run the raffle for us, and hopefully we'll have a winner. But if you have any questions, please do join in and share what you'd like to ask before we close up. I want to take it a little bit, take the conversation a little bit off to focusing on sustainability and looking after the world as a whole. Okay. So yes, we should definitely care for one another. And, with what happened last year, I think it opened our eyes to how to, I guess, avoid spending our efforts doing certain things and prioritizing other things. Okay. We talk about agility, we talk about lean as well, stripping away waste and so on. How can we maybe explore some of the things that we've covered here and some of the approach we've covered here and apply that to how we build our economies and basically build a community up together? Okay. Any thoughts on what I've just shared there? I'm going to go to Nono. Because I know, we talked about healthcare systems and schools and working with different countries and different economies and, assisting in rebuilding economies. With the Agile and, what's happened last year with George Floyd and everything, do you feel like it's opened our eyes to exploring how we look after the earth and just look after each other a bit more, and do you feel like economies have started looking at, society started looking at how we can build a better economy and help the necessary industries such as healthcare, schools, and so on?
So, Bimpe, it's twofold, I almost want to say. So with COVID, we've seen that we're all in the same storm, but on different boats. Some people are doing well, right? Some people's businesses are doing well. I imagine Zoom must be making a killing. So same storm, their boat is pretty okay. And I'm imagining some other companies are not doing so well. But what I've been thinking about really is once things, I don't know if I can call it settling, I don't know if the world will ever settle, but once we reach a new state of normal, there's going to be some devastating effects on some families. I'm thinking specifically around the developing countries We've already, before COVID, got about 260 million girls who aren't in school, right? After COVID, people are not going to be, there's going to be a greater number just because people's financial situation might have changed. In developing countries, people could have gotten pregnant because people's financial prospects aren't the same. People could have been married off quite early. So the reason I'm bringing that up is if we want to make a difference and an impact in society, and if we believe that Agile is a mindset, right?
Please just put yourself on mute if you've just joined us. Go.
And if Agile is a mindset, and we usually, if we think, I don't really want to talk about frameworks, but if Agile is really around dealing with complexity, that is a complex thing to think about. How are we going to rebuild? So we're talking about how we're going to be transforming the corporate space. We're talking about how do you empower the girl child. We're talking about how do we empower our allies. I keep wanting to move the conversation absolutely in corporate, but outside. Some of the conversations, how are we going to change our corporate spaces? I've also spoken about how do we build children who are coming from a position of power and know who they are. What are we going to do in our communities? I'm from a developing country. I'm anticipating that we're going to have skyrocketing poverty. People are not going to be in school. If people are not in school, it's going to impact our economy because we're not going to have skilled people, or at least we're going to have a drastic reduction in number, which is then going to perpetuate the cycle which we're seeing in the corporate space. So what are we going to do? As Agilists, we've got values and principles, which are quite good because it changes the way we think. We are talking about how we're going to be thinking differently in our workplaces. I'm asking the questions, but I imagine it's a heavy question and maybe we don't have the answers. But when you leave here, you transform the corporates, but start thinking broader. How are we're going to go on Operation Rebuild post all this mess? Our health system, some of them have collapsed. Our education system, some of them have collapsed, right? What can we do in our communities and in this community when we embark on Operation Rebuild? Let's start thinking, what are the small things in our respective countries that we can start working on? So again, heavy question, loaded question. Nobody is prepared for it. We don't even need to have an answer now, but something to just start playing in the back of your minds.
Yes.
Thank you, Nona. You rounded it up nicely there. Really appreciate that. We do have a couple comments. I'll just read those out and then I'm going to straight over hand it over to CP for the raffle. So yeah, don't suffer in silence, seek support and allies, speak up and speak out. Exactly, echoing exactly what Jackie had said earlier, you know. This was helpful. Thank you, Liz, for the feedback. You know, you're glad you found the group. I'm glad you joined us as well. I'm part of the community. And then grassroots movements, the sentiment that all politics are local, because we are more impacted by local laws and policies. Yeah, I think regardless of where you find yourself, like use what you have, the knowledge and skills that you have. If you're in sports, for example, if you're a singer, or if you're in the tech space, wherever you find yourself, I think really be innovative in the approach you can take to address your problem. I think really think outside the box and avoid thinking about the negatives. You know, think about the positives and how might you achieve what you're trying to achieve. Think about potential solutions. Do your research about others that are doing stuff in your space to make these things happen. So really appreciate every single one of you that have joined us today. It's been a great pleasure having Matt, Nono, Keisha, Jackie, share great nuggets with us. Share your experience as well and how you're dealing and working with the younger ones so that they have a different mindset, an agile and nimble mindset, a forward-looking mindset as well. Because that's what we're about here. We want to mentor, we want to learn and teach others to grow in this space of agile, but also just in your environment as well. Wherever you're serving people, grow in that space. Thank you so much for having us. It's been a great pleasure having each one of you. And I'm going to hand it over to CP. Please, CP, unmute yourself to confirm you're there.
I am absolutely here. Give me it. No, I'm still here. Nope, still here. Apparently my Zoom wants to be a jackwagon, but that's totally fine. We will make it happen, y'all. So kind of give folks a heads up. I'm assuming hopefully everybody is able to see my screen. We're actually going to do the raffle next. As a reminder, this raffle will be for folks. Obviously, the panelists won't be involved because this was their reward to jump in and have this kind of conversation. So sorry, I know you guys want to.
You never told me that when I decided to.
Well, you know what?
Where's the transparency?
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle.
Too late.
So yeah, as a reminder, this will be actually for the free ticket for the Agile Virtual Summit that will take place on March 31st. If you are selected, I will reach out to you via email because you all register via email and we'll get you your free ticket. And it looks like Maureen is the big winner.
Woohoo!
So Maureen, I will ping you directly and we will get you set up for that free ticket. I'm gonna share one more screen just to kind of wrap up for today's conversation. As a reminder for folks, as far as what's on deck, this can you see it? Andrew, somebody.
You know it's Andrea, right?
I know it's
Andrea.
I felt like I knew exactly
what it was.
Andrea. So what's on deck for April? Not only like stuff that we do in general for Agile and Color. This is all the standard stuff that we do. If you want to get involved in Agile and Color, whether it's on the core team, coaching, mentorship, training, topic proposals, or social media and branding, definitely reach out to me. I'll pop my email in the chat. I think if not most everybody, you can actually message the organizers directly and meet up to get those questions answered if you're interested in getting involved. Recently, now we actually have the ability to request services from Agile and Color. If you're interested in any of the things that we offer, whether it's coaching, mentorship, training, any of that stuff at all, please reach out. Go to the Agile Alliance website or type in the Google search bar Agile and Color and submit a request for support, and we'll be able to get you squared away in whatever topic or service that you need. And as a reminder, we do a bunch of other different things. So more than likely we have somebody with us on our volunteer within our volunteer organization to get you squared away. Coming up for April, our calendar is still being broken out for April, but some things that we're actively planning on doing. We actually have our Lightning Talk series that will start in April, on April the 16th, or Corinne Mitchell. It will be a pre-recorded series that we will post on our Agile Alliance site and also through our social media channels. So be on the lookout for that. Those will be, like I mentioned, pre-recorded, and they will have just a series of different talks and different chats. If you have something that you want to share after you see one of those sessions, please feel free to comment on our social media channels and social media pages. Other than that, that's all I have. Those are all the comments and questions. I mean, all the comments and stuff that I have. I want to share one more screen, and that is the request form. Again, Agile on the Agile Alliance site in Agile and Color. Scroll down, and you can select on what service that you want us to support you. That's all I got. And I'm done talking already because we're 1 minute over our time box. Yep. Do our panelists have any other questions, concerns, comments, feedback? I see we got a hand raise in the chat. I'm not sure if somebody did raise their hand or wanted to share. But if you do, feel free to reach out. Go ahead. Who's that?
It was Nicole.
Okay. If you do have questions, comments, feedbacks, please feel free to reach out to the panelists. Please feel free to reach out to me, reach out to us on LinkedIn, reach out to us on social media, and we'll be able to get you squared away. Thank you to everybody again. Again, we're over by 1 minute.
I wanted to say thank you to Betty because you did facilitate this, and that was
Yes.
great. And since we don't have a swag bag yet, we can't send you anything, but when we get one, I'll make sure we send you. So thank you so much.
are getting swag stuff.
You see that shade that was thrown your way?
I know. I'll put it on my sticky notes to get it. Swag bags. Got it. Got it.
Thank you,
One
babe.
day we'll get it. Well, we get the budget for that though. We got the budget for that.
We
though,
did
so
get
that's
the
good.
because this is the evening. You could be out. Well, I guess it's locked down in London, so you probably can't be doing anything. But maybe watching a good show. And thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
I just need to get the background. That's what I really want. So once
We'll
There
work
you go.
on that.
We'll
We'll
work
put
on
that in
that.
a budget.
We'll put that in the budget. Okay, everybody. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Everybody have a
great
fantastic
weekend,
one.
you guys. Bye-bye.
All right, y'all. Bye.
Thanks everyone for being here.
Yep.
Right. Pepe, thank you very much for being here, for being a part of this CP. Thanks for
Absolutely.
organizing, keep things running smoothly in the background.
Absolutely.
Excellent
Absolutely.
job.
No, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Take care.
See ya.